A human and an alien from opposing sides of an intergalactic war crash land on a dangerous planet and must work together if they want to survive. It's a premise ripe for excellent character growth and sci-fi world building, so join us as we discuss Enemy Mine. Welcome everyone to the Atomic Cinema Experiment. I am Peter, and joining me as always is David.
I come in peace.
This is a science fiction movie podcast. We get together and talk about a movie we watched. It's that simple. And this week we are doing a winner of a Patreon vote. There's some 80s movies were up for vote, and the winner was Enemy Mine, which is interesting because this is one that I have never seen before. Which I feel like you say that a lot, but I feel like I tend to have seen a lot more of these like 80s and 70s movies.
Oh yeah. Absolutely. I come into these like, I'm pretty sure we've gone over my entire previously watched filmography already. I'm not sure I have anything left.
Yeah, so I don't really know much about this one, but my incorrect guess is that it's about stepping on some sort of mine that an enemy has placed somewhere, perhaps on an alien world, since it's a sci-fi movie.
Again, take it with a grain of salt, but in the IMDb trivia, they said that the studio was specifically asking for a subplot with a landmine so as to not confuse audiences.
So yeah, we'll get into it. We'll start spoiler free, of course, as we always do. We'll give you a warning before we get to the spoilers. If you're enjoying the show on YouTube, hit the like button, helps out a bunch if you do. And of course, you can support everything over at Patreon and get some bonus stuff, but I'll tell you more about that at the end of the episode. Enemy Mine is a pretty classic sci-fi style story in which Earth, or I should say humans, because it doesn't seem like we're just on Earth anymore, but humans are at war with an alien race called the Drax. Which I thought was spelled with an X the first time he said it, until he said it singular and it was just Drac. And I went, oh, I see. Okay. So basically, Dennis Quaid plays a fighter pilot who crash lands on an alien world, but also a fighter pilot of the Drax side also crash lands, and they have to kind of coexist on this alien world together, despite the language barrier and despite the fact that they're two opposing sides of a war. I'm willing to bet you that this is loosely based on a story that was about an American soldier and perhaps a Japanese soldier, or maybe a German soldier from World War II.
I mean, it's based off of a source material, which was a novella called Enemy Mine that was produced wholesale. Sure. In terms of like a human and an alien.
Oh, I believe that, but yeah. I'm saying that premise, the core premise, I am assuming was inspired by the idea of just like opposing sides in a real war.
Look, the moment this started, I was like, isn't this the opening to Kong Skull Island? I swear to God, this is the opening to Kong Skull Island.
Yeah, there's that's the backstory of Kong Skull Island, you're right. There's also one or two episodes of Star Trek it's reminiscent of. And then not in the same premise of being stranded in a place and having to coexist, but there's definitely some thematic kind of parallels to something like Alien Nation, which is just a few years later, that kind of thing. But yeah, that's the basic premise of it. And obviously, the relationship changes and grows as they have to kind of survive because they're both in danger on this hostile world. So that is the basic gist of Enemy Mine. And we'll get into everything else a bit later in spoilers. But that is that. So, I guess first up, nice and simple. David, what did you think of Enemy Mine?
I feel like you kind of said it earlier on there. Enemy Mine is a perfectly fine episode of Star Trek. I feel perfectly fine with saying that, like, especially first half, 2/3 of it, or especially like, yeah, okay, great, you did the Star Trek. Stretched out to a movie length, and especially with where we go in the back half, which I don't particularly hate the back half, but pacing-wise, there's a lot of issues. There's a lot of, like, I feel like it's, for so much of the first half to 2/3, it just feels like it's meandering around. It's not focusing on the parts that I feel like would work better for a plot like this. For being this idea of it being like, oh, our people have been at war for decades now, and we have this whole thing going on. They get over themselves remarkably quickly in this, and I don't know. I feel like they just dropped that so that they could continue with the twists and turns they want to do later on. But I don't know. I guess I was just disappointed with the premise being tossed aside so quickly in here. Dennis Quaid is our lead actor. He's fine. He's okay in this role. I don't have any strong feelings for him. And then like in terms of other actors, there really aren't any. It's the other alien guy, and that's it. And he again does a good job, but he's limited by being an alien. It feels like it's not easy to act when you also have to have all these eccentricities to you. So positive though, production value I feel is pretty high the whole way through. They did really go all out to make it feel like an alien planet, so kudos on that. But no, the meandering plot and stuff was really my biggest downfall there.
Yeah, Louis Gossett Jr. plays Drac,
Yes.
or Jerry's kind of what he comes to be known by. On IMDb, he's just credited as Drac, but he does have a
Yes.
name. So, yeah, I'm not too dissimilar to that opinion. I think it does feel a bit meandering. It feels like it comes across as a sort of more cheesy version of what it's trying to be, as opposed to what could be a very like great sci-fi drama if they really wanted to hit it properly. But you know, like the characterization and the character writing just isn't quite up to the level of which could turn this into like a genuine sci-fi classic. As it is, it feels a bit more schlocky. You know, the episode 2 of Star Trek that I'm thinking of are better than this movie. And maybe this being stretched out to almost 2 full hours is also part of the problem. And I also agree that where it goes in the last third feels really weird from like a structure perspective, because it's been so focused on one type of thing the whole, like, for up until that point, that I think maybe a bit more of an even 50-50 split, and possibly even there, and this is really changing things up, but possibly even jumping backwards and forwards in the timeline maybe would have helped a lot to break up certain parts. And you know, we could have just naturally jumped ahead to the more important pivotal moments, you know, on the planet and kind of things like that. But so it's not bad. It's decent even, and like the overall ideas that it's going for, I quite like. It's just it doesn't feel like the rating's up to the challenge of actually giving it the weight that it would otherwise deserve. And you know, obviously not the exact same plot, but certainly thematically about a human and an alien kind of like getting to know each other. It's kind of wild watching this in a post-Project Hail Mary world where it doesn't do this movie any favors. And again, different scenario, different circumstances. And certainly that's not about, you know, two sides at war or anything like that. There's differences here, but it's hard not to like compare it a little bit to other things. And even at the time when it came out, I'm sure there was stuff to compare it to, even if it was old war movies about a soldier on either side forming a friendship or forming an alliance or whatever it is. I was even thinking of, again, this is a later movie, but I was thinking a little bit of JSA, the Chan-wook Park movie, which is about basically at the border of North and South Korea, and there's like sort of like a guard on either side that kind of have a friendship. And it's, you know, just stuff like that. Anything with that broad idea, you can compare this to, and it works.
Yeah. No, I mean, it really comes down to, there are things that make it specifically like, oh, this is an alien race, but there are so many more things that make it, this is just a pastiche on some other race of humans, like especially the idea of like their religion and how they have similar morals within their religion to like Christianity and stuff like that. It all comes across as very much like, no, see, we're not so different, whether we're talking about aliens or we're talking about whatever people are across the globe that we're currently at war with.
Yeah. So, you know, I mean, it's got obviously a nice message to it. It wants to promote the idea of understanding other people, and, you know, your enemy isn't necessarily your enemy just because people up top have told you they're our enemy. But, but that doesn't have the weight to go with it. So this is directed by Wolfgang Peterson, who...
We have seen a lot of Wolfgang Peterson.
We've seen a couple, and we're about to see another one over in Collector's Cut, because he directed Das Boot, and we're about to do Submarine Season, or we've just started that over there, depending on when this one goes out. And
I think it's before, but yes.
Yeah, so yeah, Das Boot's obviously arguably his most famous and prestigious film. He'll be doing that in Collector's Cut as part of that season. But in the past, you know, we did the Poseidon remake, which was one of his obviously weaker movies that people aren't too fond of, but we also did Outbreak, during one of the disaster movie seasons, and that's also one of his. So, you know, I'm sure one day we'll have a reason to do Air Force One and Never Ending Story, but, you know, we've done a reasonable selection of Peterson's work at this point.
Yeah. No, I mean, it's weird because I look at that breakthrough and I am kind of seeing the through line without having seen Das Boot, to be clear, but in terms of what we've covered already, the schlockiness feels like it's kind of a constant recurring thing. Like, it kind of feels like that's what I remember about Outbreak, is the fact that, like, yes, it was this really, like, tense story, but it felt very like focused and weirdly schlocky in some points.
I will say, I think the ones we've done in Collector's Cut so far, because that's where we did those, obviously not in Ace, because they were Collector's Cut movies. I would say that we haven't done his better work, right?
Okay.
Like, Neverending Story is a better movie than any of those movies that I just brought up, and I think Das Boot is almost universally critically agreed to be better than any of those things that we've just brought up. So we haven't done his best work yet. I think it's fair to say.
He also did Troy, which I know you're not huge on Sword and Sandals, but that is regarded well. I've never seen
Troy, so I can't speak to that. He also did The Perfect Storm, and he did In the Line of Fire, which I don't know if I've seen that, actually, the Clint Eastwood movie. I'm not sure if I've seen that. But
I remember, because I remember when we were looking up Dirty Harry stuff, I saw it popping up, but yeah. No idea. Yeah,
I'm not sure. But hey, maybe we'll have a reason to do that one day as well. Sure. On Collector's Cut. Yeah, most of these would be on Collector's Cut because none of them are sci-fi. Maybe an exception for Neverending Story, because sometimes you just sort of bundle fantasy in with sci-fi, but everything else, very much in the thriller, action, adventure-y realm of things. So yeah, It's interesting. It's interesting to cross off another one of his movies at the very least for completion's sake. But again, you know, other than these few standouts that have a lot of credibility, he seems to be a very workman director. Like you said, there's a little bit of a schlockiness. He's not like, I think if you give him a good script, and maybe he's a little bit like Ridley Scott in this regard. If you give him a good script, he'll go away and put interesting visuals in there. He'll go away and make something feel kind of cinematic and cool. But I don't necessarily think he is necessarily, you know, he's good at picking out a good script. Like, because Ridley Scott's like that. You give him the script for Alien, he goes and makes this insanely looking, beautiful movie that works because the script is solid. Same with Gladiator, same with, you know, Black Hawk Down, whatever. But you give him, you know,
half of the movies we did on his season on Collector's Cut.
We didn't do a Ridley Scott season.
Oh, that's right. We had to skip that one. I forgot about that.
Yeah, we haven't done that yet. I mean, one day we might, but
yeah, we'll get there.
Yeah, but he's got stinkers, and you know that's fine too. But I think Wolfgang Peterson kind of fits into a similar vein. Not that any of his stinkers are like. I mean, Poseidon's the worst one we've done from him for sure, and it's you know. Far. Yeah, well, so far, yeah, and I guess that's the one that's the closest to stinker. But you know, hey,
but still wasn't like, you know, worst we've ever seen. It was just nothing there.
Yeah, it was just really mediocre at best. So hey, but that's who we're working with here director wise. And like you were kind of saying that, you know, we're set on this alien world for most of the movie, and you know they have a few creatures, they have some sort of like volcanic backdrops and things like that. I will say it does have a kind of a cheesy quality to it where there's some very obvious map paintings here or there, particularly the space travel stuff right at the start of the movie. Like, for some reason it stuck out more than most movies from this era, that they're just flying like miniatures against a painting in the background, but it looked very flat in a way, and it's almost like they put too much like just too much stuff in it, like because they put in like planets with rings and like sort of splashes of color, it just emphasized how flat it was, where if it was just black with some white speckles for stars, they'd have gotten away with it a lot more.
No, I definitely noticed that as well. It's like every 3 feet of the sky, it's some galaxy or some planet in the background. It's like, guys, space is supposed to be a little more empty than this. Yeah,
they went a bit too far, and that just kind of made it feel a bit more fake. But hey, there's a charm to it. I think the big thing for me is I was worried about in the first 5 minutes was that early stuff where they're sort of dogfighting in space. I thought the tone was really all over the place, where it was like, do you want to be more adventurous and cracking jokes? Is this meant to be a serious, like you actually believe you're in a war and you're like, you know, devastated by it? Like, it was kind of jumping around a lot depending on the lines or the one-liners or reactions to things, and I couldn't really get a handle on it.
Yeah, and that's kind of what my problem was that we open up with the dogfight scene, and it feels like the premise, especially with this narration that goes over the top, it feels like we're leading into this idea of the whole story is going to be overcoming the prejudices. It's going to be how these two eventually come to work together and do whatever. but like that's done in like 30 minutes, arguably, depending on like when you say they're like officially good terms or whatever. But like I couldn't get a grip on whether or not it really wanted me to take this war stuff seriously, or if it was supposed to be more of a, you know, two bumbling idiots kind of trying to get their shit together. Like I couldn't figure out whether it was going for the comedic angle more, or whether or not I should be viewing this in the more serious lens.
And honestly, by the end, it kind of feels like the movie forgot about the war in a lot of ways. I don't want to get into,
exactly.
I don't want to get into spoilers or anything, but I'll just say it didn't seem like it was that much of a issue, or because I was like, oh, like maybe this is going to cause a lot of ruffles, because if they learn to respect each other, then, you know, if he goes back to the humans and stuff, they're not going to listen to him because they think, no, you're sympathizing with the enemy or whatever. And it just kind of feels like nothing comes of it. And I don't know, we'll get into all that in spoilers properly, but
no, but like, I agree, because within the first 5-10 minutes, so not really spoilers to any regard, you have 2 character deaths that the main character seems to be deeply upset by. Like there are things that they're at the hands of the Drac enemy, and so you're like, okay, this is something that he's going to be carrying with him the whole time. The fact that this person here murdered 2 people that are very dear friends to him never comes up, never is even like mentioned again at any point in this movie.
yeah, it's also, I think the moments where that should feel like a big pivot point, that should feel like, oh, this is a moment where one of them's trusting the other, feels like it's just a nothing thing where it just happens, and it's like, oh, you've not earned this moment, you've not earned this thing where, oh shit, I think I can trust that person now. Like it's not got that going for it at all.
And I will say, the other bit of it is this movie takes place over the course of years. That is just stated at one point in this movie. It's had been years. I don't feel like the time skips made any goddamn sense in places. Like I as soon as the movie was starting, it was like, okay, he's clean shaven, whatever, and then you see him growing out this beard, and I guess that's supposed to be the idea of the time skips. But I swear to God, his beard is pretty much at full length by like time skip 2, which in the context of the movie feels like it couldn't be more than a few weeks tops.
It's a very fake looking beard as well. I mean,
it is. Yes.
I mean, add on, and like, if this is your premise, I feel like you do the effort of shooting all of the back half first, so that you can have him in a full beard, and you can trim it and go backwards, so that you can control it, and it'll be a real beard. Them having this fake beard just kind of, again, made it feel a bit schlockier than it needed to be. Yes. Like, it's just, oh, this feels a little bit sillier because of this.
I will say a lot of the trivia centers around the idea that there was a director in place. He shot $17 million worth of footage, and then they kicked him out, and then they basically refilmed the whole thing from scratch with Wolfgang Peterson.
Interesting. Does it mention who the director was?
It does give a name. Hold on.
Curious if I recognize him.
Richard Loncraine.
I do not recognize that name, no.
Nope. Known for Richard III, one episode of Band of Brothers, The Gathering Storm.
Okay. I was just curious if it was someone like interesting, but none of that's really sparking my my synapses all that much.
Yep. It doesn't really say why they split. It doesn't give any detail there, but eventually he had to bail out.
Okay. Yeah. So this movie tends to pop up sometimes on like sci-fi gems that are not like remembered as much or whatever, and I can kind of see why to an extent. Like I think I get why mostly it's forgotten, right? I think I'm siding more on that, to be honest, but I can see why maybe enough people saw it when they were young that it's kind of stuck with them in a way. Because if I had seen this as a kid, if I had seen this when I was like 7, I would probably have some nostalgia for it. I'd probably be like, oh, it's got a cool planet, and there's kind of some nice moments here or there. I could see why it would stick with you a little bit, and it's good enough in that sense that if you have an attachment from the 80s or growing up in the 90s, I can see why it would be there. But watching it for the first time now, I'm kind of like, yeah, I can see why this isn't actually one that's brought up that much.
Yeah. Now, I mean, don't get me wrong. It feels like there is a backdrop to this, whatever the novella was. It feels like there is a fleshed out world buried behind this movie. I think that there is an interesting setting being set up here, but I don't think the movie does anything enough interesting with it to say that it's justifying like the whole movie here.
Yeah. There is lately a if they were to remake this, there is a potentially great version of this story. But
yeah, I really like your idea of the time skipping around stuff. I don't know how they would make it work, but like that immediately fixes so many of my problems with this. Of I didn't care about the back half stuff because it felt so tacked on.
It's so rushed. Yeah,
it just feels better.
It feels like such a pivot, and then it feels rushed because it's just sort of getting to the point as quickly because it's only the last like 20 minutes maybe. Whereas if you split it more evenly and jump between them, so you were constantly being like, okay, you make it more of a mission for the back half, and it's more challenging to get to where he's going, and you sort of like flashback to sort of slowly build up and justify why does he care so much, why is he so hell-bent on pulling this mission out. Like, you could really make it work, I think, but at that point I'm rewriting the script, and that's my way of saying I don't think the script's that great, so I'm rewriting it.
Yeah, that's fair.
So hey, so I think we'll probably get into the spoilers then, so we can talk about it a bit more freely, but
I one last thing, and always the last thing before spoilers. I did actually really like the score to this. I think it had a pretty decent score, all things considered.
I think it was all right. I mean, I don't think any of it stuck out to me in the sense where it's going to still stick with me for any length of time. But it's a pretty solid, typical mid-80s, slightly hopeful sci-fi score, I guess.
Yeah. It felt to me, especially with that dogfight in the beginning, I was like, oh, so you guys are just trying to be the next Star Wars, like all the other movies in this period that were trying to be the next Star Wars. But at least they had a decent score to go along with it, and that's a lot more that could be said of all those other ones.
Yeah, underwhelming space movies like this and Last Starfighter like they are bundled together in my head.
I literally scrolled down on the IMDb page. It says movies like this, The Last Starfighter, followed by Inner Space, but that's just because Dennis Quaid.
Yeah, well, yeah, Inner Space is good, and Dennis Quaid is better cast in that movie. He fits the role he's played in that movie better than I think he fits the role in this.
Oh yeah. No, because in that one, it's okay that he is this sardonic asshole the whole time.
Yes.
Where in this one, it feels weird at times of how confrontational he's being.
Yep. All right, spoilers for Enemy Mine. You have been warned. We shall get into it. So, yeah, I'll tell you this. I wasn't expecting the whole kid thing. That was definitely a direction that was adjacent to where I thought it was going. So, but yeah, I mean, up until that point in the movie, though, it's a little bit repetitive, right? Yeah. And I think what I mean by that is that, okay, you've got the initial, right, going down on the planet, his co-pilot type character, he dies in his arms, very sort of like traditional, like, oh, like, tell the girl I have a crush that she's not fat, don't call her fat, it hurts her feelings.
I immediately clocked that of they're in the dogfight and he's like, hey, let's take care of these bogeys and I gotta get back because I got a date at 6. I'm like, oh, you're dead, you're just gonna die. All right, fair enough.
Very, very dead. And of course,
then he goes off on the whole thing of saying like, oh, the backstory to the girl that we're never going to meet is that she was fat, but she lost 20 pounds and she doesn't like that mean nickname that she gave her. Don't call her that nickname. And he's like, okay, I promise.
Yeah, and he dies, he croaks, and he looks over the horizon, he sees the smoke coming from the enemy plane, and he's like, oh, I'm going to go get that alien bastard, I'm going to go do it. So he makes his way over there, and he sort of sneaks up, and he can see him, and he sees him swimming, and there's a little bit of watching phase, and he tries to attack him, during like a rainstorm, and it's the alien, the Drac gets the upper hand and ties him up, right? So we're in this little period where Dennis Quaid is tied up, arms and legs, and he sees the Drac eating, and he's like, hey, hungry, I'm hungry. And he tries to like sort of
they don't speak the same language. That's a whole thing we gotta eventually beat past.
Yes, which honestly they get past it very easily, if I'm being honest.
Yeah, exactly. They just do like one montage. It seems like it should be all of 30 minutes, and then it's like, and of course we learn some of each other's language as well. It's like, really? Yeah? 30 minutes? Okay.
So he feeds him something disgusting, which some alien slug thing, and it's like, okay, whatever, this is gross, but I'll roll with it. And there's a little character bit there where Dennis Quaid, like, he feels challenged when the alien's looking at him, so he intentionally finishes it and swallows it, even though he clearly wants to spit it out the entire time. But my thing is that the alien goes to sleep, and Dennis Quaid is sitting there, and like a big sort of meteor hailstorm kind of starts up, right? There's these fireballs coming down.
It's just a regular thing on this planet.
Yeah, and Dennis Quaid starts yelling, wakes up the Drac, and the Drac, looks over at him, and Dennis Quaid's like, "Hey, yeah, help me, I'm tied down here." And the Drac comes over and cuts the ties at his feet, not his hands, but his feet, so he can at least run away. And I thought, oh, this feels like it should be a big moment. This is him showing that it doesn't want to let him die, and he'll keep him alive. He's doing something humane, for lack of a better word. And they run into sort of a little cave area where they're shielded from the meteors, and it's like, okay, that feels like it's a big deal. The problem is that this movie is very repetitive, and I swear they both save each other from things at least 3 times each by the time we get to the halfway point. And by the time it happens for the 3rd time, I'm just like, I get it. They won't let each other die. They're bonding. Bromance.
I'd be okay with it if it felt like every time that they took that step forward, there was an equal and opposite backslide. But it never feels like there's a backslide. It always feels like they're just constantly making forward progress and never having to justify as to why this time is not the time that they finally trust each other.
Yeah, or even just the idea that, like, maybe after the first time each, they kind of expect each other's help to show that they trust each other, but there's still this kind of like, oh, well, he won't he? Oh, of course he will. All right. Well, that was uneventful. All right.
Yeah.
So it's not that exciting.
No, you're right. It's like the second time around isn't even like a big thing because, they're in the cave. Quaid gets his hands freed and he goes for a knife, theoretically could kill the Drac.
Yeah, this one's less saving and more, I could have killed you. I thought about it, but I didn't, so you owe me one. And I'm like, but he just saved you by untying you when the meteor thing hit.
And that's the other bit of it, is that he goes over to the Drac ship just to steal some extra rations. He just wants more food. And that's when the Drac comes up and just starts threatening him. And he has to mime his way through like, look, we can't stay here. We have to go. The meteors will kill us. And all I can think is like, A, you've had one meteor storm. There's nothing to say that this is going to happen again. It does, but for somehow he knows that. B, you're safe in the cave. Like, what's the problem with the cave? You never said a reason as to why that wasn't feasible here, but instead you're going to go out into the open wilderness where meteors can hit you there.
Well, because he said, the movie, I think, does this because it wants them to have to build a shelter. So we can have the pains of like him building a shelter and the alien being like, not stable, and it falls apart. And like,
it's the scene of building IKEA furniture nowadays. Like, yes, absolutely.
Like, that's what they want to do. But you're right. Like, what was wrong with this little cave you went in to hide in when the meteor? Just go in there when the meteor's hit and come back out when it's done. That seemed to work quite well, frankly. So.
And the fact that we see how much of this planet is just like open desert later on, it feels like, oh, you should be dead if you wander out away from caves.
Yeah, and the thing is that one of the creatures on this planet, which we see initially has got like a sort of tentacle thing that comes up to grab its prey, but there's like a more sort of alien alligator head that comes up attached to it eventually. That just goes through the dirt, so if they stayed in the cave area, they'd be protected from it. But of course, later on, they get attacked in their little like hut that they've built, because it can go through the dirt like a tremor, for lack of a better comparison.
No, you're right. You're right. I do appreciate, as much as I don't like the character choices, I do appreciate that, again, it feels like this world is fleshed out because the only wildlife we see on this planet that is constantly barraged by meteor storms is a beast that is buried underneath the ground, thus keeping it safe, and also a little trilobite looking creature that has a meteor proof shell.
Yeah, it's got like the underneath is very different, but I would say the shell's very turtle-esque looking. Yes. The shell.
Yeah. And that just seems very well thought out to me. The idea is like things would adapt to life on this planet, like constantly having to dodge out from meteors like that.
Yeah, and that even becomes a plot point because Dennis Quaid realizes that, oh, this thing like this always gets spit out by that monster who eats them, because it can't chew on it, and they basically deduces, oh, this shell can withstand the meteors, so we'll put that all over our hut to protect us. And again, the cave was doing just fine, but this is a solution I can't deny.
I love that scene when he realizes that, because he's got a prop. He's got a little shell, and he keeps on bashing the back of it, and he's like, this thing is rock solid. It's totally meteor-proof. And then I guess he got a bit too excited with the prop, because he does one little, like, bend, and it absolutely bends. And it's like, oh, that shouldn't be happening. You probably might want to retake that, guys.
Yeah. Maybe we should have built it out something a bit more sturdy, or do another take where Dennis Quaid doesn't bend that. He pretends that it's more solid than it actually is.
Oh no, it's Oh well.
It's always funny when that happens, is because it works both ways. Either something's supposed to be solid and you see it wobble or bend, or it's supposed to like be something super strong. Or it's supposed to be something like, so say like a super strength character. It's supposed to be something that's like no human could bend this, but they can because they're super strong. But the way they've built it, it's just like, oh, that looked very easy. That didn't look like steel bending. That looked like whatever paper mache thing you built was bending.
It's lifting up the styrofoam boulder. It's like, that seems a bit too easy there.
Yeah, it works on both ends of the spectrum. It's funny in both ends of the spectrum, I should say. It doesn't work. That's the point. It's not working on either end of the spectrum.
Yep. So just to clear up a few things, they start walking. Dennis Quaid's being held at gunpoint the whole time until, what is the event that makes him be cool with Jerry? Jerry's the name of the track, by the way.
Well, it's technically something slightly off that, but Dennis Quaid calls him Jerry because it's similar enough to Jerry.
I can't remember the event that makes it happen. All I remember is that eventually Dennis Quaid does a thing where basically the Drac is praying to like his prophet or whatever. He's reading his holy scripture, and then he says like, that book's a whole lot of hoo-ha, like you can't believe in any of that stuff. And then when asked about who his philosopher is, he responds Mickey Mouse, and that's just a joke they have recurring once or twice throughout this.
Well, specifically, he asks like, or Dennis Quaid like gives a quote that's his philosophy. He's like, "What does that quote come from? One of your great people?" Is like Mickey Mouse, and so it becomes this thing where he thinks Mickey Mouse is like an Earth prophet or something.
Fast forward like 2 scenes, they get into a fight. They're shouting at each other. He calls the Drac prophet like a shithead, and he's just like, oh, you got nothing. And then the other one's like, yeah, well, same for Mickey Mouse. And it's just like, just Dennis Quaid's trying to hold back a laugh as he walks away.
Well, the funniest thing is the way he actually responds in anger. He's like, don't you say that about Mickey Mouse. Like that was the funny part of it to me, was him actually getting pissed off that he dared insult the validity of Mickey Mouse. Yeah, I mean, honestly, probably the biggest damning statement I have about the movie is that a lot of this first half, once they actually start working together and they're building the hut, everything from there up until the major plot change happens, which is, oh, the Drac's pregnant because they don't have sex, they don't have male and female, and then reproduce.
Look, that turn came out of so much of nowhere. I was waiting for them to say it. I was like, is this a thing? Yeah.
So, like, Dennis Quaid basically says, oh, we have to go looking. I've been hearing ships at night when I'm sleeping. I want to go searching for a ship. And, he does. He eventually finds, but it turns out to be, well, yes, he finds some debris and, like, a futuristic Pepsi can, just so you get some product placement in there, baby.
Pepsi perfect. Wow.
But he basically finds that it's humans that are coming down on a ship, but they are scavengers. They are the worst of the worst, and they actually enslave the Drac, which is why the human government kind of just turn a blind eye to them. And it was funny though, because I'm like, this feels a bit weird, because the opening of the movie said that all disputes on Earth had been solved and no Earths were fighting with each other, but you're saying that there's a evil group of humans that are going around the galaxy doing this evil shit. And I'm not saying those two things can't coexist, but it felt a bit of a weird pivot, given that you said, oh, we're only fighting aliens now because humans on Earth have all banded together.
Yeah, I just to be clear, the opening narration in this is basically just saying how humans went out into the stars after they solved everything on Earth. They basically they said at one point in the plot that they legally annexed whatever star system or something like that. But the Drac claim is, we were there for 1,000 years beforehand, so it's our rights to be there. And that's what the whole war's about, is who legally controls the system.
honestly, it sounds like the Drac are right on this one. I'm not gonna lie.
No, absolutely. But like that's literally what they're constantly get into a fight later on in the movie when they're deciding to split up at one point. And he's basically saying exactly what that was of like, oh, you guys moved in, we were already here, blah blah blah. And I do appreciate that in the movie they never come to peace. Like, I don't want it to be a thing where it's like, oh, look, this one human learned the culture and therefore he's the bridge between these people. I'm happy they didn't do that. But it does come at the downside of the only reason for that is they forgot the war was happening.
Yeah, they don't do anything with it. That's
Right.
one of the big problems. But I mean, we'll talk about that more in the last third, because that's where it really becomes a thing. But they don't do anything with it. So anyway, he finds these scavengers. So he's like, oh, what do I tell Jerry? Like these people will enslave him, and they're horrible, and this is not the rescue we're hoping for.
It's
so
basically a non-option. It's basically he's just like, I can't do this.
So he goes back to Jerry. It's winter now. There's snow everywhere. They're freezing next to the fireplace. But he finds out about the pregnancy, and that we're building up to that. And there's like, we have to move. We can't stay here, especially because they get attacked by the monster that comes up from under the ground around here. So they end up moving, and they end up in another cave system. And there's kind of a cultural exchange here where Jerry wants to know about Dennis Quaid's lineage, and obviously means the character, because it's actually really funny to think about him telling about how, well, my brother Randy, you gotta meet him. He's a wild card, that one.
I am Dennis, brother of Randy, father of Jack.
But basically he's like, oh, that's not that impressive, because the Drac actually seem to really care about their lineage. He's like, oh, I'm going to tell you about my 200 layers of lineage going all the way back. And the reason why he's telling them this is because he knows there's a good chance that he is going to not be around to teach his own offspring about his lineage. So he's like, hey, please learn this so you can teach this to my child. And shocker, Jerry does die in childbirth, and we pivot to Dennis Quaid. And this is about an hour and maybe 10 hour and 50 minutes in. This pivots to Dennis Quaid raising a Drac child out here on his own. That's what the movie becomes. And on the one hand, I respect this insane twist, but on the other hand, I'm like, I don't know if this is what I was mentally prepared for or wanted from this movie either. Right. So it's like weird. I don't know.
It's so strange because, like, again, the premise when you come into this movie is the idea of, okay, they're going to have to band together to survive. That's dealt with by like the 20-minute mark, maybe 30 if you're being generous. Then that entire next 40 minutes is the cultural exchange. It's this idea where he's like, oh, you've got your little Drac Bible around your like necklace.
And to be frank, that 40 minutes is pretty dull.
It is, because it's all about just like, teach me the language, teach me the morals, and they come to terms with each other. They understand their place in the universe and all that. And then he goes off and like tries to find a way off the planet, and all of it's just like, okay, what are we going to? What are we building up to here? Because it doesn't feel like this is building to going back to the war. It doesn't feel like this is building to getting off of the planet. It doesn't feel like it has a goal. And then all of a sudden it's just, oh, pregnant. And it's like, oh, okay, I guess that was the goal then.
This is what the movie's about now. And yeah, we cut ahead a little bit, and the kid grows up quite fast, but he's raising the kid. He gets called uncle.
Kid's name is Zamus.
Zamus. He has to explain to Zamus that he's, a Drac, and that's different from human, and we see a little bit of that. We also see him trying to teach him American football at one point with some rocks, which was interesting.
Yeah, I absolutely love this movie. Is set in the, I think, mid to late 2090s.
Yeah, 2090s,
by a medical screen. He specifically references a football team that was disbanded in 1996.
I didn't get that. That's funny.
Yeah.
That's very amusing. He also does reference, don't worry, I'll buy that American football still exists in the 2090s, and I'll buy that Mickey Mouse still exists in the 2090s, but it does feel like there's a lot of just like casual referencing of present day things, because they'll all still be around, and I'm sure they probably will be, other than that football team.
We're done inventing culture. We're just recycling IPs now.
In a weird way, it was predicting things.
Yeah.
No, it's actually much sadder than that. It's only true because things are the way they are. Anyway, so yeah, I mean, like, honestly, here it's like, okay, what are we building to now? And eventually it's these scavengers show up again, and Zamus runs off to go and see them. And of course, these scavengers, one played by Brian James, who you might remember from Blade Runner. He's also in some other, like C-tier horror movies and things like that. He's got a recognizable face. He, they're clearly going to kidnap him, and Dennis Quaid comes running with his bow and arrow, actually takes out one of the scavengers. However, Zamis doesn't really understand like line of sight or the projectile weapons yet, because Zamis like runs in front of the bad guy, blocking Quaid's shot, and then Quaid gets shot with a gun. And goes down and is left for dead, and it just so happens that he does get picked up by the military or whoever we call them. And
again, at this point, you kind of get the idea as to what we're gonna do. You get the idea of like, okay, he's gonna get picked up, he's gonna get nursed back, and then he's gonna say, oh, we got to go back, and the military will probably fight him on this, but eventually he's gonna make his way back. You can see it happening. It's not bad that it's telegraphed like that.
No, it's a fine idea, but we've got maybe 20 minutes of the movie left to do all this.
And we spend some of that doing the weirdest fake out while also showing what this world is like. Of apparently anytime there are dead soldiers or whatever up on this military base, they just like pull up the file, say, all right, Christian, and then they'd like say a prayer, kick him out. It's like, all right, atheist, kick him out without a prayer.
Yeah, because one comes up saying agnostic, and they're like, all right, no music for this one. Because they had like religious music playing for the previous one. It's like, oh, this one's atheist, no music for this one. Just dump him.
And they stomp a foot pedal, he drops out into space, and then they stomp a different one, and a wreath comes out afterwards. And it's zero pomp and circumstance, but it's one of the most interesting things to be done with this space station.
It's so weird though, because like even at the very opening of the movie, all the narration took place just looking at the space station, and there's like one shot maybe inside a corridor of them running towards their planes, but other than that, it's all just the cockpit of the little fighters, and then we're on the planet from that point on. So when we start cutting to like a space station and we're getting hallways, and the weirdest thing is there's 3 other characters who are kind of like, I'm sure they were technically piloting the other ships at the start of the movie, but they were not memorable or interesting in a way where they're characters for us to recognize. So we have these 2 guys and a woman who are like just like, it's like they're meant to be his friends, and they're trying to like help him or convince him of stuff or whatever. And the briefest moment happens where like one of the superiors is like, oh, he's speaking the Drac language. Is he turned sides or whatever? Like, is this going to be an interesting plot point? And it never really becomes anything. It's just once Quaid gets up and he gets shaved and all that, he's like, oh, I'm going to go get a fighter jet. I'm going to go get Zamis back. I'm going to get my boy back. And like his friends try and talk him out of it. And the thing that really got me is that when he goes off to find where this slave labor camp is, and he's going to go find Zamis, obviously he gets into a bit of a fight, and there's like obviously the third act fight scenes and all that take place.
Yeah.
His 3 friends show up in their ships to help, and all I could think was, this is meant to be like, oh, they chose to like help and believe in him, and this is supposed to be the heartfelt kind of like the cavalry's come in, even though they've got their doubts about helping the Drac, and maybe he's like influenced them enough to like have them show signs of empathy to the other side and whatever. Yeah. But we were introduced to these 3 characters basically 10 minutes ago, and the only conversation he ever had with them was, get out of my way, I'm going to the fighter jet.
I think, and I have nothing to back this up, but I think there may have been like a deleted scene or something that's the equivalent of the mess hall scene, like right before they get into the dogfight, where it's just them being horribly racist to the Dracs and comrading together.
This is why I'm saying it should be more of a 50-50 split. I think if you have more with them like sort of showing what their camaraderie is before the dogfights at the start, and then you have more of the like him like maybe he's not ready to like get on his feet yet, so he's around for a while, and they're nursing him back to health, but we see like him talking to them a bit more, and like him now with his new philosophy and how he feels about things, and like really have him try to convince them. Like there's a lot more there that feels like either it should have been in the script from get-go, or maybe it was and they just cut out tons of stuff to speed things up. But this final 20 minutes feels so truncated and rushed that, yes, I'm all on board with like the heart of the movie being that he is willing to go and risk his reputation, his life to go and save this kid. But it's so rushed, and it just none of the weight lands, because like we've spent so little time with these other human characters that he's convinced to come help, right? So the heartfelt's not felt there. And then on top of that, we've spent so much time on this planet that the idea of like, I don't know, the way this like entire sci-fi world works with like, okay, he's going to this other planet where a slave labor camp is. Like, there's no, like, it feels so poorly fleshed out.
Yeah.
Like, because the world they were on, like you said, felt fleshed out, and like the you know, the ecosystem and the animals all felt like they fit into what this world was. But everything in the greater space stuff and the war and the two militaries and all that doesn't feel like it is remotely fleshed out in this movie.
Yeah, and that's kind of where I was a little bit disappointed, where we end up with the villain being not a, you know, it's still humans, but it's a third party. It's the group of, like, it needs to be this thing where, okay, you're either facing down the side that your allegiance comes from, or a probably better story is you're facing down both sides simultaneously. Like, you are neither currently Drac or human because you don't represent the interests of either.
But of course, as soon as he gets there and he starts asking around in Drac language, because he can speak it now, or at least enough of it, he starts asking about Zamis, and quite quickly, like, one of them's like, yes, we know Zamis. Like, you must be Uncle. And they immediately just know him and like him.
And then, of course, there's one guy there who's like, no one else here knows how to speak the Earthman language, but I do, because we have to write around that plot hole.
It just, it feels like all of the intrigue of, like, them not being sure if they can trust him and him having to convince them, no, I bonded with one of yours, I sympathize, I want to save this kid. Like, all of the actual drama of trying to build that bridge, which is what this story ultimately felt like it should have been about, is just brushed over. And what's so weird is that when this all comes to an end and they've shot the bad guy and he falls into the pit of whatever it is they're mining and all that, once that's all happened and everyone's like standing around happy, the final shots are like, oh, Dennis Quaid took Zamis to the homeworld of the Drac, and they're so thankful that they wrote him into the lineage, right? So he's part of that family's lineage as the uncle. And I'm like, okay, that's great. And it cuts to Enemy Mine so quick, like the title comes up instantly, and all I could think was, but the war still going on? Like I'm not saying this should have ended the war, but it feels like there should have been some, I don't know, like, oh, we're going to let this human, like, land on our planet when we're at war with his entire species. Like, you know, there's just so many, like, just things that are just glossed over because they didn't think about that in the context of any of this. Like, it would be one thing if, like, maybe in the 3 years he was on the planet, if they got off the planet and it's like, oh, in that 3 years we actually had kind of like an uneasy ceasefire where we've kind of, because like, both sides took too many losses, so we've like said, hey, we'll have like a bit of tepid peace here while we maybe think about what to do going forward or something.
I would prefer the opposite, honestly. I would prefer it because obviously it's 1980s. This is the Cold War. This is
Cold War.
That's obviously what we're talking about here. It should be this thing of like, okay, it's not a ceasefire or whatever like that, but there's now this like constant threat. Everyone is on edge that the big attack is going to happen at any moment here. And I'm not saying he needs to be the one that's stopping the countdown timer or anything, but he can at least be that first bridge. He can be that guy who goes over and says, hey, can we all just chill for like 5 seconds so I can find this kid?
Yeah, I don't want it to be like, the war ends because he's built this bridge necessarily, but just the idea that this could be a first step and leave it in an ambiguity of, well, maybe this will lead to something better down the line, you know?
Yeah,
something like that.
Exactly. And don't get me wrong, I like the bit of the idea, especially when they spent so long on the lineage, that he's then written into the lineage.
Yeah, I like that concept. Like, that's the thing. Yeah. Conceptually, almost everything in the movie is perfectly solid and good. It's just not written well enough to actually have the impact that it should.
Yeah, by the time you're in the middle of the movie, you're like, boy, this doesn't feel like it's going anywhere. And then it just hard pivots and you still feel like you're lost by the time that you get to where you're going.
Yeah, and then by the time it has a drive, which is that last 20 minutes of, oh, I need to go save the kid, because that is genuinely a drive, it's like, this is going to be too quick to actually feel like anything. Right? You need
especially
more
because,
time
like,
on
what
that.
does the kid even do? Like, for most of the fight scene, it doesn't even feel like the kid is there as a character. It's a MacGuffin. Yeah. It's like, there's literally the evil guy is just holding a little mannequin, just like tossing it around, like, oh, I'm going to throw it in the lava.
yeah. That's pretty much it. Like, I feel like, again, I feel bad because, like, yeah, some of the planet stuff is, you know, like when you see that tentacle come out of the ground and it grabs Quaid's leg and, like, you know, it's got a tight grip and but then, you know, it kind of feels a little bit underwhelming with, like, the conclusion where it's literally just Jerry just at the top of the little hill just shooting his laser gun down at it and just stays in place. Like, there's nothing very dynamic about it, you know?
Yeah. No, like, I'm fine with him. Okay, fine. He shoots the beast and, like, manages to save Jerry. Or not Jerry, Dennis Quaid. Fine. I'm okay with that. But then when they get back to camp, it still feels like there's this rivalry. It still feels like there's this tension or whatever. And we've already done this scene 3 times now in terms of one of them saving another. Just kiss and get it over with, you know? Like, I'm tired of this thing of like, oh, well, we have to be enemies because it says they're enemies. But like, the characters don't even feel like the effort is being put into that either. It just feels like they've tacitly accepted that they're friends and we're just never going to have a moment.
Yeah. Yeah, it's a little bit frustrating. It's a little bit frustrating that it just doesn't go far enough with anything it's doing. And that right from the start all the way to the end. There's never a, you know.
No, I mean, I watched the first 20 minutes, half an hour with my wife, and then she had to go off and do something. And when she came back, she was like, how was the movie?
Allegedly. She made an excuse.
Yeah. But when she came back, she was like, oh, how's the movie? I'm like, oh, the alien got pregnant and then died, and then we all watched the kid get saved. And she was like, what the hell happened in this movie? And I was like, I don't know how to tell you any more than that.
Yeah. I wanted to like it more because, you know, this is one that I think people do. You know, this does have a bit of a fan base. It does have a bit of a following, so I was hoping I was going to be into it, but it does seem to be falling sort of into that Last Starfighter kind of pocket for me, where I'm like, okay, I can see some of the charms and why people like it, but it's really just not good enough for me to actually be invested in it.
No, I would be invested. I think that this would be interesting to read the novella. I think that, like, maybe it goes more in depth, maybe it goes a slightly different direction. I'd be interested to at least check that out, but the adaptation here, it just wasn't paced right for the kind of movie they were making. I don't feel like and I'd love to see what the difference was between what they originally shot and then what we got here. Like, were there fundamental script differences made as well? Because that could have shaped some stuff as well, where they're like, well, we've got to be able to reuse this particular footage because we can't shoot this again.
And even if you don't do what I was suggesting and like cut backwards and forwards between, like, you know, on the planet and after the planet and do it that way, even if you're going to do it linear still, like, you could cut out at least 20-25 minutes of that planet stuff and give it to after the planet, where it's more of a difficult challenge getting to the kid. Like, make that actually be something he has to overcome. But he just goes there instantly. It's so easy. There's like no blocks in place at all. He gets to the location, he gets out of the airbase or the space station, he gets to the planet, he just saunters on in with little resistance. There's literally nothing at any point providing any kind of challenge along that entire trip.
To be fair, the one bit of challenge they have is probably like my favorite part of the movie, which is as he's in the starfighter, whatever you want to call it, the ship, he's talking to like air traffic control, and they're like, you're not cleared to go. We're not going to let you go. And he's like, I'm leaving, whether you open the doors or not. And so you've got like 10 seconds to figure that out. And they call his bluff, and he just fires anyway and blows open the airlock. And I'm like, all right, that feels like the determination. That feels like, all right, we actually feel something here.
Yeah, but like everything after, like maybe actually have, I don't know, some other fighters try and shoot him down after because he just did that, perhaps. You know, something that anything.
There's a whole bit where he gets into costume. He knocks out one of the guys and then puts on his outfit so that he can blend in a little better. And all it amounts to is one guy like looks up at him, gives him a nod, and he's like, all right, yep, I'm able to make it through.
Yep. Yeah, I don't know. I don't think I've got much more to add on this one, to be honest.
That's fine. Yeah.
It's underwhelming in most ways. It's not terrible. Like, I don't want to make it sound like that. There are charms to it and things to like about it, but it's ultimately kind of a dull, poorly paced story. And that's it.
I feel like, and maybe this is just my wishful thinking, if you were to watch this like on TV with commercials, maybe it wouldn't feel as badly paced because you have it being broken up every once in a while.
I don't know. Or it would just make it feel longer.
True. Yeah. It's like, God, we're still on this planet. We're still talking about the prophet. What's going on?
Which I was fine with just being on the planet when I originally thought it was going to end with like them having this like weird goodbye where they both kind of like each other now, but they have to go back to their own sides. Like, I thought that's what it was going to build to in the first, 40 minutes or so.
Yeah.
I wanted it to be more compelling than it was, but I thought that's where we were going. But obviously, once it got to the pregnant thing, I'm like, okay, we are just throwing out the entire playbook, and we're going in a very different direction from this point on.
Yeah, I can't. Every time I picture that scene of like Dennis Quaid's reaction to finding out that he's pregnant, none of it feels real. Like all of it feels like, oh, this is just a fake little thing that was made by like AI or something, because his reaction doesn't fit properly. The whole plot point feels weird. None of that sequence feels like it's right.
Yep. All right, David, what are you rating Enemy Mine out of 10?
I felt pretty solid about this going in, and I've only gotten more solid as we've continued on. I think Enemy Mine is a very solid 6. I think it's got charm. It's keeping it above the 5. I think that the story in the broader sense is well done. I think it's fair there. It's just that middle half an hour. It's just entirely unneeded, I think. It feels like the first part is doing what the movie was promised. The middle part is let's just talk about the universe and morality and stuff. And then the back half is like, we're going to do whatever we feel like now.
I don't think I can go as high as a 6. I mean, honestly, going through the ratings rundown or Patreon segment and doing the different categories, I feel like I have landed on a 5, which is, I think the story's below the 5. I think the other more charming 80s, production values and stuff like that, I think rise it up. I think the acting's basically just breaking even because I think Dennis Quaid's miscast. Everyone else is a little bit better, but ultimately, I think it just all comes down to a 5. Where I don't think it's terrible. I don't think it's bad. I also don't think I liked watching it that much, and I wouldn't want to watch it again. So, just straight down the middle.
Yeah. I don't see myself ever coming back to this one again, but that's also what a 6 means to me as well. Of like, yeah, whatever, it happened. It
depends on the type of 6. There's definitely types at 6 where I'm like, I'll watch this cheesy little movie again because it's, I enjoy it. But yeah, there you go. That's Enemy Mine. Sadly, I wish I was more enthusiastic about it, but yeah, maybe there's a reason why it's not as well known as perhaps a lot of other classic sci-fi is.
Look, the more movies that are childhood favorites to people, the more angry comments we're going to get. So, works out.
Very true, very true. So next time on the Atomic Cinema Experiment, we are going to be doing not a movie, but a countdown. It's been a little while since we've done one of these, but we're going to be doing our top, either 20 or 25, yet TBD on the exact amount. But we're going to be doing our top sci-fi movies of the 2000s, meaning 2000 to 2009, the decade, and we'll be both having our own lists. We'll alternate and reveal what's on our picks, and that should be a fun episode. They usually are. So that is what we're doing next week on the show. Now, obviously, David does have his homework movie. We'll get to that in just a second. But I will tell you about Patreon first, patreon.com/MailFuzzTV if you want to support the Atomic Cinema Experiment and help keep the show coming, as well as other shows like Collector's Cut, which we've brought up a couple times during this. Submarine season is starting next week. Go look forward to that. Also, the Odyssey's on that this weekend.
Yes.
So that's fun too. But you get access to the bonus ratings rundown segments for each episode, and every month we do a bonus show called Extra Reels where we review some of the worst movies ever made. And there's like 45 or something episodes of that now. There's some absolute stinkers reviewed on there. If that sounds like fun, you can check that out. Maybe play the bad movie and use us as a commentary track or something over the top of it to get the full effect. I don't know.
Some of them you might have to watch the movie a couple times over to make it work.
But yes, so thanks to everyone who supports us. It really does help keep the shows coming. But that is that. So like, subscribe, all that usual stuff as well on YouTube. Helps out a bunch. Rate us on the podcast apps. But before we go, most weeks David goes back, watches a sci-fi movie we did on the show before he joined, so he can catch up. David, what was this week's homework movie?
Well, I had felt pretty secure about the 2000s list. I felt pretty secure that I had watched everything that I would need to watch to be educated on that. But there was one more that was right on the border with you and Tara rating it. And I just decided, wanted to knock it out just to be safe. And that is 2009's The Road.
Okay. Yeah.
Yep. Yeah. I mean, look, watching this movie, Enemy Mine, of, oh, we have to survive in this barren wasteland and let's crack some jokes and have some fun along the way, and then immediately pivoting over to the road, I might have gotten a little bit of whiplash. I might have maybe lost a few gained a few emotional scars along the way.
It's a feel good movie. It's cheery. It's got a lot of jokes. It's a feel good hit for the summer.
Yeah, it's basically oh god, I'm blanking on the name now. Stand By Me. It's absolutely the same, where it's just a couple of crazy kooky family members making their way down south, seeing fun-loving people along the way. No, I mean, I don't want to spoil too much of this movie at all, so I won't. But I think it was very solidly made. I think it obviously it has a very strong emotional point to it. It is dark, it is depressing, and I think it does a good job of really driving home the central character Viggo Mortensen, his whole like internal struggle and how he's like dealing with that over the course of the movie. Child actor also does a great job. I'm blanking on his name at the moment, but he very solidly well cast there, and that's good because this movie would not have worked if the child actor was not able to deliver. And then the only thing that I'll say is not even a negative. I like the score in the general sense. It felt sometimes out of place in the movie. I don't know like how better to describe that. It just felt like the score had a little bit of this hopeful, uplifting tone to it in places that I don't feel like the movie was delivering. And every time it was hitting that track, I was like, this feels weird, but it's still a good track. I still like the individual track itself. So, no, I mean, it's not an easy watch in terms of like emotional standing, but I do think it is a very well done movie. Maybe a little bit sappy at times, but overall, I'd say this one's a 7.5. I really enjoyed it.
Yeah, I liked it a lot when it came out, and then when we did it on Ace, it went down a little bit for me just because the actual like story progression and the ending aren't necessarily knocking it out of the park. It's very serviceable in terms of what the story is, but it's the attention to just how depressing this post-apocalyptic world is, and things like the music and the performances that really keep it up to a pretty good high standard level. So I think it's worth seeing, but I don't think it's necessarily the great must-see movie that maybe I thought it was when it came out in 2009.
Yeah, no, that's fair. I've always heard about the book. I've heard about the original book being a must-read, but I can't say I really know if the movie is a must-watch in many circles.
Yeah, but cool, there you go. That is the Atomic Cinema Experiment for the week. Thank you very much for watching or listening. We do appreciate it. We'll see you guys next time. Keep watching science fiction and computer ad salsa.